Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Tuesday, the 13th of May. The sun is shining, and we've got plenty to discuss. We've got a full squad on this morning. You can tell we've got some big news to get our teeth stuck into. First of all, Joshua Barry joins us. How's it going, Joshua?
Good. Yeah, probably like Chris. Not much sleep or less sleep than I would like, but lots to get into, lots to discuss, which is just the way we like it.
Absolutely. And Chris joins us from the Jack Mobile. How's it going, Chris?
An interesting evening, shall we say, Derek? Interesting evening. One of the names that we touched on yesterday morning may well be the theme of today's show, put it that way.
Yep. Right, before we get stuck into the latest news, a quick word for our podcast sponsors. S1 Jobs. If you're looking to hand in your transfer request, folks, then head over to S1 Jobs. Upload your CV today. There are thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh, and the surrounding areas. You'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Right, the managerial search is on the agenda. We discussed it yesterday. News it first emerged over the weekend from really well-known Italian transfer gurus, if you like, suggesting that Rangers had made contact and were one of a number of clubs interested in Carlo Ancelotti's son, Davide Ancelotti. He's been at Real Madrid with his father. He's worked with him at various clubs, and Rangers were said to be keen. Now, the news sort of emerged probably yesterday evening that move has edged ever closer. Certainly, accounts and reports coming from Spain and Italy suggest that he could be closing in on a move to Ibrox. Now, Chris, we'll start with your good self. I'd imagine your phone was going bananas yesterday. In terms of Rangers and what we know, what is the latest state of play? What can you tell us?
As you said, Derek, a busy old evening. I was actually working on another piece, a big read we've got on the site for Monday. I was working on that later on yesterday afternoon, and this news, as you said, then re-emerged from Spain, having been out in a couple of Italian outlets the previous day. News from Ibrox is there's not a lot. A couple of sources at this end of it are not looking to get into discussing individual candidates or individual names. They continue to insist that it's still early in this process and that there is no leading candidate in this process. So people will obviously have seen the Italian reports and the Spanish reports. From this end of it, that's where we are. That's the news that's coming out of this end of the negotiation. So not quite an as you were situation, but Ancelotti has clearly become a name that's on everyone's lips. It's been the major talking point over the last 24 hours. No one at Rangers last night wanted to completely shoot it down. No one at Rangers last night wanted to completely stand it up. So that's roughly where we are. But it's certainly a development that has sparked a fair bit of conversation. Various WhatsApp groups and forums and Twitter was ablaze last night. I think it's safe to say it's a story that's really polarised opinion amongst the Rangers fans.
Yep. So you mentioned the Rangers not really giving too much away. It seems to be coming from really big publications over in Spain and Italy. No smoke without fire. This looks like a goer. Joshua, what's your feelings on it? You weren't on yesterday and we touched on the name. It certainly came from left field, that's for sure. Not someone I was thinking about, or I'd imagine not someone that anyone was thinking about before he was mentioned over the course of the weekend. What do you make of this news?
Yeah, we discussed last week, didn't we, Derek, the fact that the managerial appointment wasn't dependent on the takeover being done first. I'd expect the Rangers have their new owners and manager definitely by June. Could be early June. The rough timeline that has been set, as we understand it, was 4 weeks from around about last week to get a new man in, basically largely because pre-season isn't far away and Champions League qualifiers aren't far away. As Chris says, as we understand it, obviously the reports of this being very close to being finalised, they're almost over the line. They've sort of been tempered by sources this side of the negotiation and this side of the deal. that's pretty common, is what I would also say, because if you think about it from an incoming manager's point of view, they have other options, as Davide Ancelotti seems to as well. Rangers are one of them, and Rangers obviously have other candidates too. This long list that they established, drawn up, had a range of different names. It wasn't a case of managers with just one style. There was some managers with a Red Bull association on there, some who are more possession heavy, different kind of a variety of styles across the board, and those discussions are still ongoing. We don't think it's at a stage where Davide Ancelotti is the only person that Rangers are speaking to and all other options are off the table. However, as you rightly say there, when the reports coming out of Spain and Italy are that definitive or that decisive, it probably shows you how highly he is thought of at Ibrox. I quite like it. People might not be entirely shocked to know, and we can get into the reasons why. The important thing to remember here is the process that Rangers have now to appoint a manager differs a lot from probably what they've done the last couple of times. Certainly last time with Philippe Clement, this is being led by football people, and that can be a cliche, but I don't think it is a cliche when you're trying to appoint a manager. You need people who understand the nuances of styles of play, how you work with this squad, what's going to be effective in Scottish football, because clearly with Clement's style of play, as we explained and spoke about at the time, there was a real breakdown with maybe what his style was understood to be and what actually played out. It is Kevin Thelwell and Greta Steinsen who are leading this interview process, although Thelwell hasn't obviously started his role officially as Rangers sporting director. And the Ancelotti names we can get into maybe does follow a trend of clubs like Brighton with Fabian Hurtzeler last season, not necessarily going for expertise in that a man who has managed for 15, 20 years on their own. Sorry, not necessarily going for experience, but going for expertise. Who is the best coach available? Who's going to give us the best opportunity of winning football games as a result of that? And definitely this name, it seems to follow that trend.
Yes, certainly something. I'm with you, Joshua. I'm quite. It's every managerial appointment is going to be risky. Of course, it is. But I can get on board with this. I quite fancy it. A number of clubs were interested in Ancelotti, so it would be interesting to see him as his main man. He's lived in the shadow of his father, but if he was a dud, I would imagine his father would have taken him to the clubs that he has been at, and he wouldn't have entrusted him at Real Madrid either. So I've got no qualms with that. I've seen little snippets on social media of interviews that he's gave of other pros and coaches speaking about him. It certainly seems like he knows his onions, as they say. Chris, what's your feeling on it? If he does get the gig, are you on board? Comes with an element of risk, of course, as I touched on there. What's your gut feeling on this one?
I think I've just been asked on this morning to be the grumpy old man and to be the Rangers star on this particular show. Johnny was not available, so I had to call in Plan B. I think a lot of it depends on the structure around about him, and a lot of it depends on the job that he's asked to do. I think Rangers fans have an idea of a manager as a very set style of figurehead and personality and character. When you say Rangers manager, you think of Walter, you think of Alec McLeish, you think of Jock Wallace, you think of figures like that. If Ancelotti does come in, he's not going to be a manager in that style. It's a real breakaway from what fans have grown up with and what has been successful. He's going to come in as a head coach, and the task will be to coach the players the best way Monday to Friday, and then put that plan into action on a Saturday and win as many games as possible. If the structure around about him is right in terms of Kevin Thelwell as sporting director, and if he's got strong leaders within the dressing room, he's got perhaps a more experienced assistant alongside him. If every other aspect of this football club, everything from commercial to communication to sports science to medical, if everything in the club is working properly and all pulling in the right direction, it makes his job easier. And you then focus on what his strengths are. His strengths are not being the figurehead of a football club. They're not being that statesman-like figure. His strengths are putting on training sessions and getting messages across to players. And over his time that he spent with his dad, he's clearly got messages across to some very, very good footballers, and footballers of a far higher calibre and level than he's going to ever deal with during his time at Rangers. So if he's there just as a coach, and he's there as a guy who his only task is to produce an effective and impressive style of football, to build a good team and to win football matches, it could work. If he's asked to do other things, if the expectation is that he's a manager, I think then that will kind of fall down. So I think if they do go down this road, they almost have to pitch it to the fans in the right way, and that will take a bit of PR nous. It'll take a clear strategy of, this is who this guy is, this is what we expect him to do, this is how he should be judged. Don't judge him as an Alec McLeish or a Walter Smith or a Jock Wallace. It has to be judged as a modern coach. Like Josh said, the Brighton examples, Arteta at Arsenal, more and more clubs are going down this route, and it's really interesting that Rangers are seemingly deciding to follow.
Yeah, is that just a shift in sort of the way we're looking at things now, Joshua, with the incoming board, of course, that they are pretty reliant on data and things like that, and moving into this coach scenario? It's not something we've really seen at Ibrox before, but I guess it's a shift away from the norm. And for me, it's pretty exciting, but it's just falling in line, I guess, with the way the game's going. If
it's a shift away from the norm of what Rangers have been in the last few years in happy days in terms of their football decision making, I agree with Chris on that. See, if we're talking about this situation this time last year, Davide Ancelotti is likely to become the next Rangers manager, one under serious consideration, and you put him in the situation Philippe Clement was in last year. I don't think that necessarily works, because he has to be the club figurehead. He has to work with not a great quality of player. There's not much leadership around him. However, if you take it forward to this summer, you can have a new sporting director, you have a technical director in place, you have a chairman and a CEO. That's before you talk about Parag Marathi and Andrew Kavanagh, who are obviously heavily involved behind this deal. That's already 6 kind of big voices in there. Now, if you go and put, let's say, Steven Gerrard and his team in there too, there can be too many visions of football. You might go from one extreme to the other. So I think there's an argument that what Rangers do need, and this has kind of been the noises around this managerial hunt, this managerial situation. They've been guilty too much of looking for a manager to solve everything for them, to either get them out of a situation, take them to the promised land. Clement, we're going to throw all our eggs in that basket. We're going to give him this new contract. He's going to have time to make it work because we trust he will win in the end. Michael Beale, he was here when the good times were here before. We're going to trust him heavily with the recruitment, and we're going to back him with this summer rebuild. You can go on and on, give example after example. That hasn't worked. And what Chris says is right in that Rangers have done this first. They've not appointed a manager before a sporting director. They've done it the other way around, as was always likely to be the case, and as we always expected it to be the case at the time. So it's coming in to be part of something. The other benefit of that is that you don't completely press reset every time there's a new man in the dugout in terms of your squad building, in terms of your overall tactical ideas and what you want to do as a club with your kind of football DNA. What I would always come back to, though, is I see if you look at Rangers at the weekend, maybe not against, or maybe not the weekend because they won, but the last 3-4 months, they all season have looked like a team. Their biggest issue has been they look like a team uncomfortable on the ball. And I think what would give you confidence as a player is not necessarily, because we've seen it with Barry Ferguson. I don't think there's anyone who would have, more from a Rangers point of view, more authority in terms of understanding what the club's about, being able to demonstrate, here's how I've done it as a young player before the second spell, and this is what I expect from you. Right, I don't think. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think in the modern era, you could get a better fit for that type of bespoke club figure. But I think what players need, and what again you're seeing around world football, with whether it be Hertzler, I think it's Hertzler you pronounce it, or Arteta, or a number of other clubs and coaches, is that they're going for the expertise of who understands modern football and who can coach a team in a way that gives players confidence. Because if you're a player, what gives you more confidence? Going onto a pitch, knowing what your expectations are, or knowing how to reach them? And the argument would be that if you've got a really high quality coach, he is going to give you a number of solutions in a way that allow you to do that. And again, if you go back, Derek, to Celtic's Scottish Premiership wins in recent years, they've not done it with an ultra physical team, or they've done it by playing football. And Rangers, to compete with them, I think you saw them go so far the other way with this in terms of Clement's domestic philosophy. They just need to create a really good football team. We can sometimes, I think, overcomplicate and romanticize Scottish football a bit too much. So would there be things that Davide Ancelotti would need to adapt to, and would going away to Kilmarnock be a bit of a culture shock? Perhaps, yes, I'm sure it would be. However, think of Rangers at Ibrox in recent months. What is going to give them the best opportunity of winning is how well they are coached as a football team, and that makes sense with the model it seems that they're going to. We should stress that there's a variety of people on this long list, and that's what club sources have been keen to stress, that others are under consideration. But certainly this type of model, that type of profile, I'd be more in favour of going for that than someone like Sean Dyche, who might have a lot more experience and fill more of that managerial role that Chris explains, but is he going to be able to coach a team who have 60% of the possession, as well as someone like Ancelotti, given the role he's had at big clubs? I don't think he would know.
Those that are maybe looking at experience, Chris, he's not been the main man before. I would cite the fact that some of Rangers' best managers have never had a role as a manager before taking the reins at Ibrox. I mean, as recently as Gerrard won the league, Walter Smith, of course. I would love to have seen social media when Graham Souness left, and see what the clamour was to get Walter Smith given the job, and imagine that it wouldn't have been met with much joy at the time. Souness at the time wasn't a manager before he came to Rangers in '86. You can even go way far back. Bill Struth wasn't a manager before he took the reins, and he's widely considered the greatest of all time. Is that a concern for you, that he's not sort of cut his teeth as a boss before?
I think it certainly has to be a factor. Anyone who says they have no concerns over that factor at all, I think, is looking at it with rose-tinted specs and being a bit too bought into the romantic aspect of it. If his surname wasn't Ancelotti, would there be the same enthusiasm from some quarters of the fan base that we've seen? So if he had been had any other surname and didn't have that parentage and heritage, I don't think we would have seen people buy into it as much. The experience aspect, it has to be a concern to a degree. But as you say, the last Rangers manager to win a league had never taken charge of a first team game before he came to Ibrox. Situation is different though, because Rangers have got themselves in this predicament where they're looking for almost a long-term solution and a short-term solution at the same time. Is Ancelotti going to be given the 3 years that Steven Gerrard got to go and win the league? Probably not. So that puts a different slant on it. But you then say, well, we've had experienced managers in the past, and Gio had all the experience in the world as a footballer and had a wonderful career for various clubs, and obviously for the national team, had been successful as a manager, came to Rangers and couldn't replicate it. Clement had great experience in Europe, had a track record as a winner. There was a lot to like about his profile in terms of the success he had in Belgium. It didn't work out. So there's no surefire formula that says because you have had 350 games as a manager under your belt, you're going to be able to come into Rangers and be a success. If you're looking for experience, you go and hire Neil Warnock, and that's only a suggestion that would appease you, Derek. Not that's not a widely held. That's not.
I'd bring him in as a mentor. Get him in.
So the experience factor, it does have to come into it, because he's going to be put into situations that he's never experienced before. He's been in so many situations as a coach, as a number two, with having one of the most experienced and most trophied managers in the modern era. He's always had that buffer. So that is definitely a, I don't know if it's a negative, but it's definitely a factor and has to be a consideration here.
I love this. Good friend of the show, Stephen Purden, gets in touch. He says, I was initially nervous about this appointment, but Joshua has got me pumped up for it now. So he's on board the Ancelotti train, is Stephen. Good to have you tuning in, buddy. Listen, lots of comments in the chat saying this has got disaster written all over it. The thing for me, Josh, and I touched on it earlier in the show, this guy didn't have any minerals about him, I very much doubt his dad would have taken him. And I know that some are saying nepotism and that sort of thing, but listen, he has to have something about him to be taken to various clubs. It's not a case of you just taking him to Real Madrid to sort of take your son to work day sort of thing. He's entrusted him to coach the players on the training pitch, and he certainly has his part to play. Not only at Real Madrid, but the various other clubs that he's been at. Of course, he was at Everton as well. So does that concern you that it's the Ancelotti name? I know someone said if he's not Ancelotti, would he be getting linked to this job? The fact he's sort of Carlo's son, is that a concern in any way for you?
Well, the thing is, he is, and he obviously is a very highly rated coach because, as you say, if you're Carlo Ancelotti and you've won what you've won, and you're entrusting a large percentage of training to your son, he probably is quite good at it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're probably not just bringing him in to keep the family dynamics happy. Yeah. But I agree that, of course, it's a risk. Any appointment Rangers make here is a risk. The point is they need to build the structure of a club in a way that mitigates that risk. So I was speaking to someone at the weekend who said, why can't a manager, talking about Thelwell, why can't you bring in someone like Dyche and a manager, what is he doing that a manager can't do? And the argument is probably not that much, but the manager's role now has become there's so much more football to be played. There's so many more media duties. Recruitment has got so much more complex that you need a football club to have this infrastructure surrounding the manager to give them the best chance of success. Rangers have been an outlier in terms of not having that, as Patrick Stewart explained when he confirmed that the club were going back to that sporting director model, and it's not worked very well. But of course, Ancelotti would be a risk because it would be his first foray without his father. I would also compare it to this. I think we can confuse risk a bit in football. My explaining football terms of this would be: you might go for a manager who's more. You know when you see a team play the ball up the pitch away from danger, Rangers did this. The first goal they conceded away at Athletic Club. And they kick it away, but it just comes back quicker. And you think you're clearing it away quickly from danger, mitigating risk, but you're actually just inviting more pressure. I think there's going to be risk in whatever they do. It wasn't a very good example, but my point I'm trying to make is just going for the more traditional route of someone who's done it before, someone who's a safe pair of hands. If you look at Rangers over the past number of years, does that necessarily work?
No.
Does that
it's risky? It's risky, but
it is risky.
It comes with risk as well. So it's left field. I love this from Timothy. He says, "What do you think of Madrid's style of play, Josh?" I'm sure you'll be delving into Madrid's season, which you'll be absolutely enthused about, I'd imagine.
Well, they are quite interesting because they don't Carlo Ancelotti doesn't have the same. This is quite like I'm going into football Twitter kind of spheres here, Chris. So you can switch off if you want, but he doesn't have an overarching. He's been famed for kind of adapting to his players a bit more, way back to AC Milan when he made the diamond, and because he was kind of earlier than the Guardiola takeover of football, adapting a little bit more to his players as opposed to having a clear and outright, this is what we're doing. So if you can, even the Clásico at the weekend, which is an incredible game, only watched the highlights, Barcelona won 4-3. But you look at Barcelona under Hansi Flick, they play this crazy high line and they have a very set structure of what they're doing. Arguably, they went out of the Champions League semi-finals because they didn't just tighten up in extra time away against Inter Milan and San Siro. Whereas Carlo Ancelotti's always been a little bit more famed to adapting to his players. But beyond how is that going to translate to Rangers? Again, I think you're looking at what is the quality of Davide Ancelotti as a coach, and can he implement a style of play that makes Rangers succeed domestically? Because it's not that there is some difficult pitches you've got to go to. There is games like Kilmarnock away, but it's not another sport. You need to create the best football team to do it. And if Davide Ancelotti has the credentials to do that, I think that gives him as good an opportunity as someone more experienced. Of course, he would need to. How would he be as a figurehead? How would he be in the media? How would he be in the dressing room? But again, Real Madrid's got quite a lot of pressure surrounding it, even if you're not the main man. And arguably, if you're the coach's son, I guess he's probably faced this his whole life, hasn't he? Especially at Real Madrid. Why is he there? Is he only there because of his dad, etc., etc.? So I don't think pressure will be a new concept to him in football.
Plus, if he's struggling, I'm sure he can get on the blower to his dad and ask for a bit of advice as well. Now, the major publication over in Spain, Diario AS, it's got 3.3 million followers, came out with the news yesterday. They've went so far in saying that Francisco Mauri, who is on the coaching staff at Madrid, has been lined up as his assistant as well. Now, by all accounts, Joshua, he is the set-piece specialist, Mauri, at Madrid as well. So that is certainly music to my ears.
Yeah, well, there was a great line in an interview we did with Harry Watling recently. He was Michael Beale's assistant, who said set pieces should always be your top scorer, which I like. And he said at the time he stole it. So I don't know where it's come from, but we'll attribute it to him. And that would be nice if Rangers had some good set pieces. They did have a little bit of an upturn under Barry Ferguson initially, with Billy Dodds taking control of them.
They did.
Scored a few times, but all of these things are like small examples. I'm going on, so I'm throwing it back to Chris, but small examples of, if you have a set piece coach for a number of years, you can develop things. If you change the roles and responsibilities every season, you end up where Rangers have been this season, where they were the only team to not score a set piece goal by December, I think.
Oh,
December 26th was the first time they scored a set piece goal in the Scottish Premiership this season.
Yeah, Chris, is it important? I've seen some suggesting that he needs someone in that with a bit of a Rangers DNA, if you like, as part of the coaching setup. And I've seen some suggesting that he should go and get Big Dunk, who's looking for a job. They work together at Everton, worked well together there. They have a bit of respect between each other. I would not be opposed to that. But is that important for you, that there is someone with that sort of Rangers bloodline in there?
We spoke about Duncan Ferguson on the show the other day, didn't we? When we both said it'd be great to see him back in the game, but probably at a lower league club in England. Didn't expect him to be touted for the Rangers number 2 or number 3 job. I think that Rangers man in the staff, it's all very Pedro Caixinha. That was probably the first time that it became an issue of, you bring in this foreign coach who doesn't know the game, who doesn't know Scottish football, doesn't know the players and the personalities and the politics of it. So you bring in a guy who does know. Safe to say, Jonathan Johansson had great experience at Rangers, knew the game, knew everything about it. It didn't help that Pedro was an unmitigated disaster from start to finish. So I don't think it necessarily would make or break. Again, if the structure round about him is fully functioning, and if he is as smart as we all will think he is, it shouldn't take him a lot of time to figure out what Scottish football is and how to be successful here. You have a budget that dwarfs the majority of the other teams in the league. You should have a team that is more than capable of going and winning the majority of the games. And if you just take care of it, sounds fairly simple, but if you take care of business at Ibrox against teams that you should beat 9 times out of 10, and you don't make the same mistakes that Rangers have made away from home, not just this season, but in previous seasons, you do that, you will be in title contention. It then comes down to, can you win the Old Firm games? Rangers have shown this season and in previous failed seasons, they can win the Old Firm games. So it really shouldn't be that difficult. That's not me putting myself forward for the job because I'm making it sound easy. But the formula for Scottish football, when you have the budget and you have the quality advantage that you have over so much of the league, you should be able to go and put a winning team on the park. For a variety of reasons, Rangers haven't done that over recent seasons. Style's not been good enough. Recruitment's not been good enough. Other issues in and around the club. But this is such a fresh start for the football club. There's new voices in the boardroom. There's going to be new voices and new faces in the dressing room. And if they tick all these boxes, if they get all that right, there's no reason why an appointment like this shouldn't work, regardless of who the other member of staff is. As Josh touched on earlier on, if you're looking for a Rangers man, a Rangers figure, it's Barry Ferguson, and there is no chance that Barry's going to go from being the Rangers manager to being number 3 and taking out the bibs and the cones on a Monday morning. So even if people thought that was a good idea, where do you then go for that particular appointment outside of, as you say, Duncan Ferguson?
Yep, some comments coming in. World's Greatest DJ says Italians have generally done well at Rangers, Gattuso, etc. Yeah, I can't think of an Italian that of all the Italians, I think Vanoli, apart from that screamer he scored against Dundee, he's probably one that didn't do quite so well at Rangers, but all the rest of them had pretty decent careers at Ibrox. That's an interesting point from Haggis Killer. He says if the reports are accurate, and he's also bringing a number 2 with him, what happens to Charai, Issam Charai? That's a big question, Joshua. He signed that deal in January. Bit of a strange one at the time. I think a 3.5-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. By all accounts, well respected at Rangers, and I would not be opposed to him hanging around and being a coach as part of the setup. But again, it will be interesting to see what happens with regards to that.
Yeah, and the fact that he obviously stayed after Clement left probably tells you that it wasn't a Clement appointment. It was more of a club influenced appointment, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing for, if you're speaking about coaches with a Rangers DNA or Scottish football understanding. It's not a bad idea at all to have some consistency in the coaching staff, whether that be backroom technical staff or kind of assistant managers or whatnot. Charai could start to fall into that category. Will the new Rangers manager bring a whole team with them? You've seen the difficulties sometimes of a whole team coming in and a whole team leaving, and there not being much infrastructure left behind them. So I wouldn't be totally opposed to that, because it's going to be it is going to be a quick job in which you've got to get up to speed. I don't know about the whole Rangers DNA, and you need someone who knows the club, and how many times do you need to be told that this team don't like you, this team don't like you, this team don't like you, and this is a difficult place to go? It kind of applies to everywhere. It's not it's just kind of par for the course. It's going to be difficult. This is the type of game you're going to face. This is what this team might do. You're also seeing more and more other Scottish football sides like Hearts with Tony Bloom's prospective investment, who are going to start to become more of a threat and modernise in different ways. Hibs obviously have that Black Knight investment and have had a good season too. So I'm not sure that these last 3 months have taught us that you do necessarily need that. However, some sort of consistency from a coaching point of view, having a voice there that's been there a little bit longer, might not be the worst thing in the world at all.
Yep. Thank you to Kev for reminding me of Filippo Maniero. Never took to the field in a Rangers jersey. Thank you for reminding me of him back in the day. You remember him, Chris? Filippo Maniero?
I don't remember him playing, obviously, but I remember I remember the name, and I remember seeing him in the odd picture. But apart from that, not fond memories of his time at Ibrox, has to be said.
No, less said about him, the better. This, what Joshua said you don't have much time. Reports, of course, coming from the publications that broke the story, Chris, that he may be heading out. Carlo Ancelotti has been confirmed as the new Brazil coach. That they have 2 matches coming up at the start of June. Brazil. He might his son will be heading out there to assist him with those, then coming back to take the reins at Rangers. Now I've seen some fans saying, what's going on there? Surely he gets in the door pronto, because time is ticking with regards to trying to shape a squad with these Champions League qualifiers and pre-season on the horizon. Would that worry you if he pops up the 10th of June, I think, has been quoted?
Again, not really. And I think it ties into a point that we've made a couple of times on the overall structure at the club. It's not as if he would be coming in on that date and then say that you've got a fortnight to build a whole squad, because pre-season is starting, and you've then got three weeks to work with them, and you're then into the Champions League qualifiers. If you take his job as the guy that's going to do the training sessions and not the guy that's going to be signing the majority of the players, he will obviously, if it is him, he'll need to have a say. He'll need to define his style of play, and that will then need to be fed into the recruitment strategy. He's not going to be the man that's going to be on the phone to the agents and on the phone to the players and sitting in front of the players and trying to get these deals across the line. He will have the say so, and this applies to whoever the manager is, whether it's Ancelotti or whether it's another name that we've also discussed over the last couple of weeks. That recruitment side of it, it's going to be led by Thelwell, it's going to be led by Coppin. The deals are going to be done by Patrick Stewart and whatever influence the 49ers and Andrew Kavanagh look to have on it. it's not going to be a Michael Beale style summer where he's with the manager or the main man at the football club is jetting across Europe every couple of days to go and speak to a player and then get him to say, by the way, we'll give you 3 years and X number of £1,000 a week. That's not his role. So technically, without sounding overly simplistic about it, as long as he's on the training ground for the first day of pre-season, it shouldn't make a massive difference because other aspects around about him are going to influence him, are going to shape this squad.
Interesting stuff. Right, it's press conference day, incidentally. It'll be interesting to hear what Barry has got to say today on, of course, the news that has emerged over the last 24 hours or so. Now, that press conference will take place 1:30 this afternoon, as ever. Chris, you'll be in attendance, am I right, at the training centre for the last time this season?
I will be. My last trip up there. It's safe to say it's been quite a season. People, I actually had this conversation with somebody the other day that you forget Rangers didn't actually start this season at Ibrox. That much has gone on. It's felt that long. It feels such a long time ago that we're actually heading along to Hampden for the first couple of games. So heading up to the training ground as the final time this season. They're not doing a presser ahead of the game on Saturday. They'll just do extra stuff after the game on Wednesday night. So I think that was a wise move that certainly didn't meet with any resistance from the Scottish press corps anyway. So we'll head up there later on. We'll see what Barry has got to say for himself, and we'll see what player is made available as well.
Yep, and a heads up, folks, later on, around about 4 or 5 o'clock, I'm going to be catching up with a Real Madrid expert as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll get an insight into Ancelotti and his influence alongside his father at the Galacticos to find out just what Rangers are getting if this move goes through. Right, we'll wrap up there. Big thank you to you all for tuning in. Big thank you to Joshua and to Chris as well. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, folks. If any developments take place over the course of the day, you'll be the first to know on not only here, but also on the website. Make sure you're subscribed to that website as well. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk. Right, we'll chat later. The press conference reaction, you'll hear from Barry as well later on. Until then, if I don't speak to you, then enjoy your Tuesday, whatever you are doing, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.